So this podcast is going to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to do in FMSC 332, Children and Families. So we're going to move through the course in order of the periods of development. We will start off talking a little bit about kind of an overview, and we'll talk a little bit about theories and research. But when we start getting into our child development topics, we will move through in this order. We'll talk about the prenatal period, and that includes conception to birth. We'll look at infancy and toddlerhood, which will encompass 0 to 2 years. Early childhood, and for early childhood we'll look at 2 to about 6 years. When we talk about cognitive development, the early childhood stage bumps up against about 7 years, but really we're going to focus in early childhood on preschool. And middle childhood are the elementary school years, 6 to 11 years old. And adolescence is 11 to 20. So the domains of development that we're going to talk about as we move through the ages and stages that we mentioned in the previous slide are listed for you here. We're going to look at physical development, we're going to look at cognitive development, which includes language, and we will look at the social and emotional development. These three things are intertwined and interrelated, but we will keep coming back to them over and over again. So we'll look at infant cognitive development, and we'll look at infant social and emotional development, and then when we move on to the next stage and we're looking at preschoolers, then we'll be looking at these same aspects for them. So we'll look at all of these domains of development. And because this is a family science course and family science heavily emphasizes context, we believe that context is very important when we work in human services, because that means that we can step in and make some kind of a difference. So we're always looking at the context. So as we go through the course, we're going to talk about how development is contextual for the child. So how children develop across time as they move through these developmental stages, and in those areas of development that we talked about, physical and social, emotional, and cognitive, depends on these aspects listed below. It depends on the child. The child will bring individual characteristics to the table for sure. And it also depends on the parents, because the parents introduce information into the child's world, and of course that social emotional interaction is important. It's all important, and the parents obviously have the greatest influence. But other members of the family also have influence. Siblings, other important members of extended family, and other people that are embedded in the child's life, the child's immediate world, and so that can include anybody that the child sees on a regular basis. That can include neighbors that they see every day. It can include the child care center that the child is enrolled in, other kinds of supportive people that are in the child's life and with whom they interact very frequently. So as a child, let's say, gets into elementary school, maybe it includes something like the children on a child's sports team, if they see those folks a lot, or their friend group. The immediate world also has an influence in terms of how children grow and develop. And then of course we've got larger community and societal expectations. What you learn and what you learn is important varies from place to place, and that overall context makes a huge difference too. So development definitely is contextual for the child. And development also is contextual for the family. So our main task when we are looking at working with children is not just to support the child, but we also want to look at family functioning. We want to support adults in the supportive roles that they have for fostering the best possible outcomes for the children in their lives. And we know that parenting efficacy in all of these areas and helping a child to grow cognitively, socially, emotionally, physically, and across the ages and stages has to do with the individual adults, what they're bringing to the table. Their own childhood experiences, what they've learned, what they have had exposure to, what they think, their personality, all of those kinds of things that make us up as individual adults, that impacts our efficacy at parenting. And then there are the family dynamics, what's going on in the family, what's going on between individual parents and other family members, what's going on if it's a family with parents who live together, then what's going on among those parents and what's happening. What are the family dynamics? What are the expectations? How does everybody interact with each other? And then the extended family. How much support do people get from, extended family, or what are the relationships or expectations or messages that people are getting around the important aspects of child development? And then you have the family's immediate support. Those things make a big difference too. Do people have somebody that they can call if they're just bone tired and need a nap? Do they have somebody that they can call for advice or experience when things inevitably are, tricky and or difficult? And what are the larger community and social constructs, and how well are, families doing within those particular contexts? So that's going to be something that we're also going to be talking about as we go through the semester, because of course it impacts the development of the child, and it's contextual for the family as well. So this semester you have some major assignments that you'll be working on. One is you will develop parent education materials. That will be your first big assignment. And the purpose of this is to pick a topic that you're interested in and an age group that you're interested in, or maybe you'll pick a topic that goes across age groups. But in any case, you will develop materials that you could use to help support parents in their task of parenting, to help increase parental efficacy. There are three main ways to do that, and this is discussed in more detail in the podcast on the parent education assignment. But essentially, parent education is delivered in three different ways. It's delivered as an individual case study. You're kind of working with a family, one-on-one, and saying here's the information that you need to have. And so if you already have a family in mind that you're working with, that's one way to deliver parent education. Another way to deliver parent education is to create a website, and a third way of delivering information is to hold a class or a workshop and give information out like you're teaching, like with a PowerPoint and a script. So one of the things that you'll do is you will develop materials for this. This is a very practical exercise. Many people who end up working in human services find that they have to engage in parent education activities in some form or another. So this will prepare you to do that and to get comfortable for how to think through what you would want to present and how you would want to present it and why, and what you want people to take away from that. You also have an observational assignment. This is a choice assignment, so you have to do an observation, but what kind of observation is up to you. You can either interview a family with young children, or you can observe at a child care center. The reason that these are your two choices are because these are the two dominant contexts of children. If they're in a child care center, not a preschool where they go to, twice a week for 3 hours, but a child care center where they spend the majority of their day every day, that's a dominant context. Or of course, obviously, the family is the ultimate dominant context. So you'll need to conduct an observation. So that'll be the second major assignment that you have. And then you also have other assignments. You have discussion board questions, you have several tests, you have textbook quizzes. The textbook quizzes are designed to help you move through the material. You can take the quizzes more than once, and you get to drop a lowest score. So the textbook quiz is almost a misnomer. It's an exercise to get you through a dense textbook. And you will also have, as a component of this course, lots of podcasts to present the material to you just in a different way, in case hearing it as well as seeing the slides is helpful in addition to reading the book. So why does this matter? Why does the material that we're covering in FMSC 332 matter to you? Because if you work in any field of human service, you will be called to work with families all the time. And inevitably, when you're working with families, you bump up against issues around parenting, around children, around families, and it is entirely contingent on the developmental stage that the family is in. So if you know something about child development, if you kind of have a sense of what's happening when families have infants and what's happening when families have teenagers, it helps you to understand the family as a whole and to figure out what kind of supports would really help this family to function in optimal ways and help support the adults and the children. So this really will give you useful information that you will find yourselves using in the field somewhere, somehow. And that's what we'll cover in FMSC 332 this semester.